Hey, chiropractors, welcome to Modern Chiropractic Mastery with your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, where we discuss the latest in marketing, business, and professional growth with some of the leading experts in the industry. Hey, docs, welcome to another episode of Modern Chiropractic Mastery. This is your host, Dr. Kevin Christie, and today I'm excited to bring you once again, Dr. Shawn Thistle. He was on some time ago, and he really has become MCM's kind of go-to for all things research and research supporting what we do as chiropractors, whether it's the chiropractic manipulation or spinal manipulative therapy that he often references it as, or other modalities we may do as chiropractors. And his service is just amazing. My private practice has been a subscriber for many years. I've donated subscriptions to people. We've had drawings for it. And as of the last almost year, we've been collaborating to where he's providing our MCM clients who we do their marketing for with research slide decks for Instagram and Facebook to really distill it down for the patient. These are nuggets of information meant for the layperson. It's been amazing. We've gotten a lot of great feedback for that. And today's episode, we're going to dive into some of the exciting things about the research of what we do with chiropractic. And we don't have to feel like we're doing things that are not evidence-based. And we even dive into, are we evidence-based or evidence-informed? What lingo? We have a nice wide-ranging conversation, but we dive into the exciting aspects of what we can legitimately tell our patients the evidence is supporting is what we do with spinal manipulative therapy and some other aspects of what we do as chiropractors. And it's always good to have him on periodically to give us the updates on some of that and some of the things that are currently released, have been released recently, and then what's potentially on the horizon with some good news for that. So without further ado, here is my interview with Dr. Shawn Thistle. All right. I'm excited to have Dr. Shawn Thistle on the episode again, not the first or the last. And we're going to have a little bit of an update on the research and some other topics this particular episode. So welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about the new world of Shawn Thistle and what you've got going on. Update our audience. This might be the first time they've heard of you. I doubt it, but what do you got going on?
All right. Thanks, Kevin. It's nice to be back again and always good to chat with you. These days, as always, I'm up to a combination of helping chiropractors integrate research into their patient care and creating evidence-based, usable continuing education courses for chiropractors. So for our colleagues down in the States, I'm a PACE-approved continuing education provider. And so, I practiced for a long time and then sort of transitioned into doing this full-time because, staying up on the literature is a full-time job. And putting a clinical lens on things is sort of what I specialize in. And we offer a subscription-based service with weekly research reviews that many of your listeners are probably familiar with, and the online continuing education offerings. And then the rest of my time where you and I bump into each other at chiropractic conferences, I'm on the speaking tour and run my own events that way. And do a bit of teaching at CMCC in Toronto, and medical legal consulting in chiropractic cases in Canada is kind of the other thing that I do to round out the week,
Yeah. Busy. And we had a good time in Vegas together there. We had a little
Absolutely.
salon dinner, which for the folks out there that aren't familiar with that, just a conversational type dinner around a topic. There was 8 of us that we kind of cherry picked and wanted to have diverse thoughts on the profession. And I thought that was fun and it was enjoyable.
That was honestly, I appreciate the invite to that event. And it was one of the it was a cool format, first of all. And I think everybody that was there, it's a way to get a bunch of people together in kind of a collegial environment that may not have ever sat together. And you realize how much you have in common with everybody.
Mhm.
And when you talk about the profession as a whole, only good things happen. And I thought that was really cool. So yeah, that was a really great event.
Yeah, I'll try to do another one next year. I'm not sure if I'll be in Vegas, but I'll do it somewhere. And
Yeah.
it was good. I think the only thing I would change is get into a quieter environment, but that's going to be challenging at restaurants, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you mean. It wasn't that bad though. I mean, I've been in louder restaurants, so it could have been worse. The
Yes,
food
for
was
sure.
great there too.
It was very good.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. And then the other thing I wanted to thank you for is you've been a big help for our MCM clients, and you're producing the slide deck material that we post for our clients on Instagram and Facebook, and that's been very well received, and kind of
Nice.
distilling down the research into the layperson to consume.
Nice. Yeah, I'm glad. I think I'm always looking for different formats. And, when you came to me with that idea, I'm like, yeah, like how quickly can you boil down a study into three
Mhm.
or four statements and get the point across and stimulate some interest? And really, like you and I talked about, give our colleagues something to talk about with their patients or help
Yeah.
inform patients about what we do at the same time. So, yeah, I like doing it that way. It's cool.
Yeah, it's been neat, and we've had some good feedback as far as what even our chiropractic members have learned by just getting them and reviewing them. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't know that that was out there, and I think that's something that I want to kind of roll into and segue is because it's like if you got arrested by the cops in Vegas for doing something you shouldn't be doing, but you didn't know that was illegal, that's not an excuse, right? The police aren't going to buy that
Yeah.
as an excuse for the crime you just committed, and it's kind of the same way with research. Is that as a doctor, it's part of your responsibility to know what's out there or coming out there. And if you don't know what the research is, and you can't really just say, "Well, I didn't know that," it doesn't really line up too well. And so I think what you've done is yeoman's work to really try to educate the chiropractor on what is the research saying, what do we feel really strong about, what are we looking forward to over the next 6 months or the next year
Mhm.
around that. And so, what are some of the things you're seeing in the research that you're excited about? You still got some interpretation to figure out with that. I love the fact that you had a clinical background in practice, and you've been in the trenches, and so you can
Mhm.
apply it to that. So, what are some of the things you're seeing?
Well, I think, the responsibility to stay current on research is not a uniquely chiropractic problem. If you're a physical therapist or a cardiologist or whatever your specialty is, there's some obligation that comes along with being a doctor that you're current on what's happening. And the average clinician's ability and willingness, I think, to stay current on the evidence are both challenges now because
Mhm.
people are busy with their practice. And you do a great job dealing with all the aspects of practice on your podcast and everything you do, apart from knowledge transfer. But knowledge transfer takes time. It takes some awareness of what kinds of evidence there are. And I would suggest that there are a couple of issues now. There's a volume issue of science that's coming out. When I first started reviewing papers for a subscription based service, I was concerned that I wouldn't have enough papers to review one per week. And now, literally, I can do 50 a week and not cover everything. So, my job is to help identify a variety of different topics that clinicians might be interested in and not like low back pain all the time or something that people might get a bit bored with, but also help them understand the sort of 30,000-foot view of evidence and what things are happening and where things are shifting. So, to your question, Eh, I think we've made a transition as a profession, and it's partly because of different sources of big data that are available to us now. Like you have to remember, evidence-based medicine wasn't a thing until the mid '90s. Really, randomized trials weren't conducted until the 1920s or 30s, and they were conducted poorly, without much ethics approval, and all kinds of problems with it. But the model that we've always been trying to fit ourselves into as a profession in the last 30 years is pretty new. And we've gone from trying to show people that we can conduct the randomized trials and fit into the evidence-based pyramid and do what we can to having access to huge databases of real world data of how chiropractors are helping people, in clinical practice all across the United States and North America and in Europe, for example, and how, the impact that we're having on patients' lives. So
Mhm.
I think the need for good, high quality, well designed randomized trials is still there, but I feel like that's being supplanted a little bit by our access to big data, which taken as a collective can show us the impact that chiropractic can have from a cost saving perspective, from helping back pain patients avoid opioid prescriptions, benzodiazepines, gabapentin. I have a review coming out this week on Robert Traeger's new paper about tramadol prescriptions and how seeing a chiropractor for radicular low back pain can reduce the chances of being prescribed tramadol. And we just didn't have this stuff before. And I don't think we would have pulled this info out of a randomized trial. But when we see what's happening in the real world via insurance data or however else you can access it in these big databases, there are a couple of things. There's power at scale, and the answers are so consistent, they become hard to argue with, even if there are some drawbacks to that methodology. And I think that's a major shift that we have to sort of ride the wave of until it sort of shifts again. But I think the narrative around chiropractic care and the impact we can have for patients has shifted more in the last 5 years than it has in the last 30. And I think that's a powerful thing to embrace for us. But as you said, it's a matter of, the clinicians knowing what to talk about when they meet MDs or when they meet
Yeah.
new patients, and how we network around that and how we integrate our knowledge into actionable things that we can do with patients, referral sources, third party payers, and that sort of thing. So there's still a lot of work to do. But I think, you know, I've talked at a couple of conferences about, do we need more randomized trials on chiropractic manipulation versus exercise for back pain? I don't think we do. They're both clinical guideline recommended treatments. One's not necessarily better than the other. But via these big databases, we might be able to pick out when and who would respond better to manipulation or exercise at a different time based on maybe what kind of back pain they have. And the Danes are doing a lot of good work on back pain trajectories now. And I think in the next few years, they're going to help us elucidate 7 or 8 different types of back pain that people have. And in combination with some bigger data there, we might be able to start algorithmically pointing a certain type of back pain to a certain type of treatment. I think that's going to be a golden road for us if we can figure that out, because that'll help the average clinician understand what to do with a patient in their office on Monday morning. So there's sort of a lot of things happening, but I think the main shift in the last few years is from, randomized trials with 50 patients per group to looking at databases with 115 million people. Like I'm not sure, you can't compare the impact of one to the other anymore. Plus, randomized trials are super expensive to conduct. There are even the best designed trials are still open to criticism. And look, database papers are not perfect either, but geez, they keep telling us the same answer over and over and over again at scale. So I think they're becoming harder to argue with. So that's sort of where I sit on what the shift is. And it's really exciting to see. And I think what's nice about it is that these results and the impact that they can have on patients are almost a direct reflection of what all of us have seen in practice
Mm.
and what all of us have been waiting for the evidence to tell us. So I think we're entering a really good time period for chiropractors in terms of how we integrate and consume evidence, because it's all lining up pretty well for us at this point.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you mentioned big data. I was just at Jay Greenstein's event in DC, and he talks a lot about data as well. Um, Based on like what you're talking about, they're looking at even from insurance carriers and competing with them. And so you're seeing the data really be able to tell stories in different aspects of the profession. It's excited to be able to leverage that, and obviously our ability to aggregate and accumulate all that data is getting better and better, which is pretty cool. Are you seeing anything with AI that's helping with that currently or down
Um,
the road?
in some ways, I'm the wrong person to ask about AI. That's
Yep.
that's a Jay thing to talk about,
Hmm.
as you know. But I think, from my perspective, AI presents a couple of challenges. One is that in some places, these sorts of tools are being used to like mass produce research, and it's getting harder in some areas to tell what's real and what's not. But
Hmm.
that's a knowledge transfer problem. I think the power in the AI is going to come in the coming years anyway, in helping us crunch all this data and
Yep.
figure out what's what and come up with these algorithms that might be able to help us in clinical practice and even identify some relationships and other things that we may not have even known were there.
Yeah.
So, I think there's a broad positive possibility for it, but just like any other application of AI, we just have to navigate it carefully, I think.
Yeah. No, it
Yeah.
makes sense for sure. Let's take a break from today's episode and announce our first sponsor. This is going to be Propel Marketing and Design. I've known Darcy Sullivan for years. We've worked hand in hand on my websites. I don't trust anybody else to do this search engine optimization. She does a great job. There's so much to it. A lot of the lingo and the words are beyond my comprehension, but it's just amazing work that she does. And if you're really going to get results with Google, you have to make sure your website is SEO optimized. And I really don't want you doing it yourself as a chiropractor. So you just have to have this type of stuff done. And if you're looking to get more organic online traffic that pulls in new patients, Propel Marketing and Design is currently offering chiropractors who listen to this podcast a free SEO website review. The free review will help you uncover methods that will improve your website and boost your search engine visibility. Head over to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor and schedule your free SEO website review. You won't regret it. She gets great results. Your website needs this. Your search results need this. Head on over there to propelyourcompany.com/chiropractor to get your free SEO website review. Let's take a short break for one of our great sponsors, TrackStat. It is a new type of software plugin for your EHR that combines patient communication, marketing, automation, and statistics with patient and employee tracking. Built by chiropractors for chiropractors, it shows your team what to focus on each day. See patient visit habits, missing information, unpaid bills, insurance collection visit average, and more. Great visibility of data so you can focus on filling your office with your best patients. When you can see what your staff and patients are doing or not doing and take action accordingly, your profits naturally grow. Take TrackStat for a test drive in your office with our free trial. Not a techie, no problem, we can help. To get started on your free trial, visit trackstat.org and watch the demo. That is trackstat.org. One of the things I've been I think a subscriber for 3 or 4 years now of your service, and what I like, there's a lot of things. It definitely helps me keep up to date on certain things, but you'll break it down because a lot of times when someone says chiropractic, like what does that mean? But you'll actually like tease out, spinal manipulative therapy is showing this, and you'll even say sometimes I see some things on dry needling sometimes, and in exercise, and so you don't just lump it into things, and you really carve out what you're seeing, and it helps me as a provider connect the dots. Or when something like we just had in the state of Florida, actually. Dry needling we're allowed to do now as chiropractors without doing the acupuncture training, and which is a big deal for us.
Oh, great.
It was a big battle. Just got
Mhm.
signed in last week, and I've been able to keep up with like I mean, a lot of us know this, but I was keeping up with like what can dry needling do? What's the hole in what we're offering or in what we're seeing in our patients that we're not getting results in, and what could that fill from an evidence-based model? And so I've always appreciated that.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did notice is that spinal manipulative therapy has a lot of benefits. I think it's becoming pretty apparent. What are some of your updates on that?
Yeah, one of the things that I put together this year was a 5-hour e-seminar, like a video-based course you can take on my platform with Dr. Simon Wang from CMCC. He's spoken at Parker events in the last few years, so some of your listeners may have seen Simon. And we put a course together about the mechanisms of action of spinal manipulation and looked at the data and the science on physiological changes, immunology, biomechanics, all the way through to contextual factors and kind of the qualitative stuff that might impact treatment response. The ultimate punchline from that course is the effects of spinal manipulation are probably pretty broad in terms of where they come from. And I think
Mhm.
ultimately down the road, maybe one mechanism applies more to one patient than another. Like maybe it's the modulation of the pain generating system in one patient. Maybe you're reducing a region of spinal stiffness that was generating some nociceptive signals in another. Maybe some patients feel better over time because their immune system responds differently to spinal manipulation and it responds well. And for some patients, maybe it's just the act of coming into your office and they love seeing Dr.
Yeah.
Kevin. And I think we shouldn't stress too much about the mechanisms. It's kind of like geeking out on what manipulation does. And that's why we
Yep.
put the course together. It's been very popular course so far because, of course, chiropractors are interested in this.
Yep.
But I think, the profession has survived over time in the absence of evidence because we provide an intervention that patients find helpful.
Yep.
I think the evidence is going to help us fine tune how we apply that intervention. And I think it's equally as important to know who to adjust, just like it's
Yep.
important to know who not to adjust. And I
Yep.
think once we figure out the nuances there and start to apply it in clinical practice, I think chiropractors have a pretty good batting average overall in terms of patient uh, successful outcomes, patient satisfaction, and that sort of thing. But if we can make that even better, the argument for us at a system level in the healthcare system at large becomes a lot more compelling.
Mhm.
And so I think we have to continue to dive into the mechanisms that way, but also recognize that we can't define ourselves as one intervention. Seeing a chiropractor and seeing a chiropractor that takes time to do a detailed history and communicate with you and talk to you and empathize with you and be a source of information and comfort and support. I think all of those things are important. And as we see that kind of qualitative literature emerge over time, it's again just backfilling what we already knew is that,
Yeah.
it's something around the whole healthcare experience that chiropractors provide that's magical for patients. And I think we shouldn't be so eager to attribute it directly to the treatment we provide all the time and be open to the fact that it might be some other things.
Yeah.
So I may have strayed a bit from where your question.
No, it is perfect, because it's multi-layered for sure. I just
It
think that
is.
I've noticed a lot from the evidence-based chiropractors, and some of them are straying away from spinal manipulation altogether. And if
Mhm.
that's their personal choice, that's fine. And they may be heavy into muscle work or heavy into rehab exercise, things like that. And all that's fine. But I think some of them might just have a void also in what the research is saying about the benefits of spinal manipulative therapy. And so that's not why they're doing it. Or
Yeah.
they frankly, I see some of them, they never really put in the hours and efforts to get good at it. So they're not seeing the results of it because it's maybe not a great adjustment being delivered. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of nuances to that, but I just want to make sure that whatever direction the chiropractor wants to go in the services they offer their patient, I'm fine with as long as it's in an evidence-based realm. But don't throw out spinal manipulative therapy because you don't think it's actually, um, what the efficacy is not there or something, right? Like
Yeah.
it's there,
Definitely.
and I think it's important for them to know.
And it's maybe we're getting to the age where we're talking about the generational thing, but
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is manual therapy is a learned skill over time. And I think what I've seen in the real world is that some graduates come out and they're frustrated that they're not as good as the seasoned veteran doc that they start working with. But it's not reasonable to think that you're going to be the same there. And you talk about developing young chiropractors, and we talked about that at the salon dinner too.
Yeah.
And it's, wanting to achieve early in your career, there's nothing wrong with that. But you still have to be realistic with yourself about your experience level, how many humans you've had your hands on. And I think from a 30,000-foot view perspective, our ability to provide empathetic, comprehensive manual therapy will be a strength of our profession going forward as medicine evolves away from touch and personal human interaction with patients,
Yeah.
as AI starts to weave its way into medicine too. So, there's a lot of value clinically and a lot of power in human touch in a healthcare environment. And I think that alone is a reason to continue with manual medicine, provided that it's given in conjunction with other evidence-based treatments,
Yeah.
and you make those decisions in conjunction with the patient. I mean, there are so many ways to integrate it well. I think abandoning it, and I know what you're saying. I've seen it online too. Is there's some frustration with, I think, skill level,
Yeah.
so they don't necessarily see the results that they want, but again, they've come out of chiropractic school thinking they're going to know everything they ever want to know. And there are lots of avenues that, like, I'm not a technique guru, but if
Mm.
someone wants to get better at their manual skills, They could go to MPI, for
Yep.
example, in the United States. Those guys do amazing work and help people fine tune what they do. And so I think we have to impart on our new grads the idea that you're at the beginning of your journey, not at the end of it, and that includes financially, skill wise, cultural authority wise, and confidence wise. And it's up to the rest of us who are in practice that work with the younger docs to help bring them along. And I think that's something you focus on a lot through the work that you do. So it's really important to do that.
I'm so glad you brought that up. It's really pure gold there. And it's, you have to have that growth mindset and
Yep.
try to work towards mastery because it's not going to happen overnight. And I think what's happening is certain things, the learning curve is not as steep, right? Like, no offense to these things that I'm going to say, but exercise and doing exercise with patients is great and phenomenal. The learning curve is not as steep as, say, manipulation, palpation
No.
manipulation. Dry
No.
needling, you can get that in a weekend and do dry needling on Monday. The learning curve is not as steep. Kinesiotaping, laser therapy, right? Like, you name it, a lot of those things don't have a deep, steep learning curve, whereas palpation manipulation does. And I'm
Mhm.
afraid that too many of the newer DCs coming out are not overcoming that obstacle, as Ryan Holiday would say,
Yeah.
and they're kind of going to the path of least resistance, and then almost in defense of it is saying, well, manipulation doesn't work, it's overrated, like all those things to feel better about it. I'm not saying everybody does it, but I do see that happening
Yeah.
a little bit.
For
And
sure.
I do think they need to hit it head on and just say, you know what? Yeah, I'm 26 years old, graduating. I'm probably not going to be a skilled, hands-on palpation manipulation chiropractor until I'm 30 or 31,
Yeah.
or maybe it's 27, whatever it is, but it's going to take some time and you got to embrace the suck a little bit sometimes.
Yeah.
Because on the other end of that is another 30 years of phenomenal practice and benefiting patients, and I think, I'm
Yeah.
so glad you brought that up because it wasn't a direction I was necessarily thinking, and it's just really spot on.
Well, there are two simple facts there. And well, one simple fact is you remember being a chiropractic student. Who do you primarily work on when you're learning? Your
Students,
classmates,
yeah.
who are all young, fit people, right?
Yeah.
Walk around any chiropractic campus, it's a bunch of young, fit people. And then when you get into practice, who are your patients? Like old, stiff people. I'm generalizing, but
Very
you know what I
true, yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
all of a sudden you've got a body type on your table that you don't have much experience with. And so give yourself some grace to learn. And then the second thing I tell young practitioners is if you move to a small town in Ohio or Ontario or wherever you are, call the oldest chiropractor
Mhm.
in the town and go and get adjusted by that chiropractor and you'll
Mm.
see how amazing they are.
I know.
And then you'll know what your delta is from where you are to where you need to be.
Yeah.
And so, I don't think we leverage that natural mentorship stream that kind of our chiropractic colleagues have a history of eating their young instead of
Yeah.
supporting them. And I know you help people try and navigate that. And it's an important thing to focus on because the younger generation, I know there's some data out there showing that the attrition rate in chiropractic is going up, which is
Mm.
astonishing to me that you're going to pay all that money, go to school for all that time, come out into practice, and you don't make 200 grand in your first 3 years and then you quit. Like, no, it takes time, and there's like you said, there's good stuff on the other side of hard work and looking at it as a journey, not a destination. So,
Yeah, it's so
mm,
true. You're not gonna make the 200 usually at age 30, but maybe at age 40, 50, 60, you could have 20, 25 years of making that money. It'll put a big dent in your retirement, but it's not gonna happen overnight.
yeah, and there are very few professions where if you're a corporate lawyer, you don't start out making 300 grand a year either. So,
No.
as funny sometimes I don't know what people expect. And so maybe it's a matter of being a bit more forthright with them when they apply to chiropractic school.
Yeah.
Because when I applied, I don't remember ever thinking I was entitled to make X number of dollars when I graduated. I knew I'd have to go out and build a practice. That was just part of it. I don't know if that's changed or the expectations have changed. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's tricky. But I
Yeah.
got one more question for you, and I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Yes, sir.
Evidence-based versus evidence-informed. What are your thoughts?
So I've used both over time. I think
Same.
when I started doing this, I was a staunch evidence-based guy.
Mhm.
And then I thought, that seemed to put people off sometimes. Like it made people sensitive. I'm still not sure why, to be honest. So I shifted into evidence informed for a while. And then I had a couple of our highest level scientists in the chiropractic profession ask me why I used it.
Mhm,
And one of them said to me, "Well, you're either evidence based or you're not." And I'm not sure what evidence informed means. And it seems like evidence informed has turned into this partial excuse to ignore the evidence.
mhm,
So, and I think that the language that medicine around the world uses and the World Health Organization uses, for example, is evidence based.
yeah,
So why don't we just use that? And it still means combining what the evidence says, what your patient preferences are, what your experiences as a clinician is. But that model itself makes a huge assumption. And that assumption is that the clinician knows what the best evidence says. And that's where the three-legged stool just literally falls over most of the time. So that's what I try to help people with. And I
mhm,
think we have enough clinical guidelines now for back pain, neck pain, and the things that we deal with on a frequent basis that I don't think there's any excuse for the average clinician not to have some idea
mhm,
what the evidence says, and then the nuances of how the new, bigger studies are tweaking our messaging and helping us inform patients and medical doctors better about what we do. For example, is something that has to be done on an ongoing basis. So I'm not offended by either term, to be honest.
mhm,
I kind of get it. As long as the evidence informed term is not used as an excuse to say, yeah, yeah, I know the evidence says this. I'm just going to do this anyway.
yeah.
Does that make
It's
sense?
it makes
What do you
perfect
think?
sense, and you sold me on it because I was drifting away from evidence-based and evidence-informed, and that's why I brought it up to you before we recorded. I was like, where does Sean stand on this? Because I'm getting confused by it now, and
Well,
and
I think it also boils down to this. 20 years ago, to be purely evidence based, there wasn't much you could do in practice as a chiropractor because we didn't have a solid evidence base behind really anything we do. But I think we have some answers now. And so I
mhm,
think it's okay to say you're evidence based, recognizing that healthcare comes with a lot of inherent gray areas.
mhm.
And that's okay. But to just turn away from the evidence and say, well, it's too complicated. There's too much of it. I don't know what it says anyway. That's unacceptable. So I think whatever term you use, you have to make some commitment to understanding what the evidence says. So, yeah.
Well, there it is. There it is. We're gonna go evidence-based moving forward on the MCM podcast.
Yeah. We'll make t shirts and stuff. It'd be good. Don't be scared of it. I guess that's evidence informed is kind of, I don't know. To me, it kind of implies like you're kind of nervous about it. We have nothing
Yeah.
to be nervous about anymore.
No, I agree. That's what's exciting about it. And I think we have a great future ahead of us as chiropractors, as long as we stay on that path of mastery and keep on getting better, clinically, communication, all the stuff, right?
Absolutely.
And you're playing a big role in that. And before I let you go, how can our audience find out more about what you have going on?
All right. So they can head over to ShawnThistle.com. That's where all of my courses and research reviews are. If you'd like to, on the new platform, when I created it last summer, we made all of the weekly research reviews available individually. So if people want to test out one or two and see what it's like, you don't have to subscribe to the whole bunch.
Mhm.
Your listeners here can use coupon code MCM30 to save 30% on anything I do. And if anyone has any questions about it, they can reach me at Shawn@ShawnThistle.com. And I'm always happy to help with knowledge integration or seminar speaking or helping people get their Con Ed hours, and looking forward to connecting with some more colleagues down in the US.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll put that in the show notes. That is SHAW in. And so check that out. One of the things I believe wholeheartedly in is delegating, and I've delegated that. I've been a subscriber of yours for a few years now, and it's my way of delegating to get the information sent to me, and so I can keep up with it consistently. I haven't delegated the reading of it. I'm still doing that. AI is not doing that yet for me, but I'm reading
Yeah.
it. But at least it gets in my inbox, and I know it's like, okay, here's updates, and then it has helped to read through the slide deck material you create for our MCM members, and it's a good way of learning. And it's kind of like Blinkist, your those little slide decks. Like, oh, I got to read up more on that, so I can go
Yeah.
log into your portal and read more into it. That really has helped me clinically, and I appreciate that.
Well, thanks. And I think we've done about 1,200 reviews since I started doing this. We post about 50 of them a year, and it's a variety of different topics. If you subscribe to the whole bunch, as you know, you can search by topic. They're organized by topic,
Hmm.
so you can answer more specific questions. And as always, if anyone has something they'd like me to review that I haven't reviewed before, just let me know.
Sounds good, Doc. I really appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks a lot, Kev. Great to catch up with you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. And if you want to make the shift from busy, broke, and broken to time-free and cash confident, or you just want to continue with the exponential growth, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com. Look at the MCM Mastery tab, watch the short video on there, and check out what we are doing now for evidence-informed chiropractors. We are equal parts coaching and marketing done for you. Yes, you shoot some videos, we help you with campaign strategies and ideas and really become a thought leader in your community. You shoot those videos, you send them to us, we produce, edit, and brand them to you. Then we distribute them through all of your channels. We also take them and we turn it into one good blog per month. And every other month, we have Darcy Sullivan producing a robust blog with a topic that you pick from her database to help with your SEO. So we essentially become your content marketing agency to make sure your practice is always having ethical, elegant content marketing to help grow your practice. On the coaching side, we also help you with everything from marketing ideas to business, communications, finances, anything practice growth, and really try to help prevent you from being stuck on that island. And we hold you accountable. We have a great group of doctors that are just doing amazing things, and we look forward to help you out to take that next step in your practice. So again, check us out at modernchiropracticmarketing.com and learn more.